In the previous video, we saw how we could write a Python code to recover saved Wi-Fi credentials from your Windows system. We used Jupyter Notebook to write the code. The complete code was written as atomically as possible, so that we can understand it better. You can find that video here. The link is also in the description. In this video, we will create its Python file. We will merge a few lines of code and add some extra code to work better. I am using PyCharm IDE to write the code. Any other Python editor can be used. Let us begin with importing the subprocess module. This module allows you to spawn new processes. We are using it to execute our command line commands. In our next step, we will programmatically find the code page of our console and store it in a variable, and print it in the console. In lame terms, the code page is an identifier for characters. If our code page supports a set of characters, they will be easily encoded or decoded, otherwise, it will raise an exception or error. In our code, if our SSID name has non-English characters, then it is possible that a Unicode decode error exception can arise. So as per our strategy, we will find our current code page. If the Unicode decode error arises, we will change our code page to 65001, execute the rest of the code, and later in the end, we will set the code page to our default value. In the description of this video, you can find a link to an article about different code page identifiers. We will also create a variable that will act as a flag variable for the code page change. By default, the value of the flag variable will be false. But if the code page is changed, it will be set to true. We will write the rest of the code in the try-except block. Doing so, if an exception is raised due to process failure, then we can get the appropriate message, without the code crashing. If our process crashes, then the subprocess called process error will return a non-zero exit code 1, and we will also print the output. Now we need to extract all the saved SSID names from our system. To do so, we will use the subprocess module of Python. We will execute the net shwlan show profiles command through it. As the output is in bytes, we will decode it using UTF-8. And going further, we will split the output at carriage return, /r, and new line character, /n. Let us store the output in a variable. While executing this line of code, decoding with UTF-8 can raise Unicode decode error exception. So we will write it in the try-except block. And in except block, we will handle the Unicode decode error exception. As explained earlier in our strategy, if Unicode decode error arises, we will change our console's code page to 65001. This splitting at colon and indexing is done just to get the code page identifier number from the complete output of subprocess.getOutput. How splitting and indexing work, I have explained in my previous video in detail. Please refer to it. The link is in the description. Let us save the new code page identifier number in a variable, and print the same. As we have changed the code page, we will set the flag variable to true. Now we will have to rewrite this line of code here. What will happen is, if our default code page works fine, then we will receive the wireless LAN profile details at this point. But, if Unicode decode error exception is raised, then here first the code page will be changed, and then we will query for getting the profile details. Let us check if we are getting any output of wireless LAN profiles or not. We will click Run. We are getting the expected output. But what if there are no SSID names present? Then, there is no meaning in executing the rest of the code. Maybe a called process error exception will be raised, which we have already handled. But still, we will write an if condition where we will check if the length of the output is 0, then show an appropriate message on the console, or else execute the rest of the code. Since we only need the SSID name from the profile details, we will get rid of the rest of the details. First, we will only extract the lines that contain the text, all user profile, because the SSID name is associated with this text. We will write a list comprehension to isolate the element that contains all user profile text. Then we will apply split and indexing to separate the SSID name from the rest of the text. Note that, if you have a different language locale on your system, then you need to write that text as per that locale. In my system it is English. Let us store the output of this list comprehension to a variable. Print the variable to check if we are receiving the desired output. Definitely, we are getting all the SSID names in the output. But there is a slight problem. We are getting all SSID names 2 times. This is because I have 2 physical Wi-Fi hardware modules on my laptop. So we will convert this list comprehension to a set comprehension by replacing square brackets with curly brackets. The set data type variable allows only one copy of the element to be stored in it by removing duplicates. Let us make this variable name more understandable. On running the code, we can now see only one copy of SSID names in the output. Thus we have completed the first half of the code, which is getting all SSID names stored in our system. Our next step is to get stored password for every SSID name. We will write a for loop which will iterate through each SSID name stored in this set. In this for loop, we will use subprocess.getOutput command to retrieve detailed information about each SSID by executing the required netsh command. We will decode it using UTF-8. Once the detail is retrieved, we will use this list comprehension to extract the password for that SSID. This list comprehension will first look for the element in the list that contain the text, key content. This is because the password is associated with this text. Once it is done, using splitting and indexing, only password will be retrieved and rest of the text will be eliminated. We will then print the SSID name and password on the console. Since there is a possibility that an SSID has no stored password in the system, accessing the password list with an index number will raise an index error exception if the password is empty. So we have written the print statement in a try except block, and in except block we will handle the index error and display an appropriate message saying, the password was not saved. This will prevent our code from crashing, and the code will continue to execute. Oops, this for loop should be inside the else block. My bad. Now we will write a finally block. The finally block will be executed no matter if the try block raises an exception or not. This can be useful to close objects and clean up resources. Here, through the flag variable, we will check if the code page was changed or not. If it was changed, then, using the subprocess module, we will reset the code page to the original code page, which was stored in this variable. Let us store it in a variable. Then print an appropriate message for the same. After that, we will set the flag variable to false. It is unnecessary but helps to keep track of logic. This input statement will not let the console immediately close after code execution. It will wait for some button input from the user, and the user will be able to see the output. Let us run and check if we are getting desired output or not. Yes, we are getting all SSID and their stored passwords. And if the password was not stored for an SSID, then we are getting the password was not saved message for them. Also, we see that the code page is set to default in the end. 437 for me. Up we can see that my default code page was 437, and it raised a Unicode decode error because I have non-English SSID names too. So the code page was changed to 65001 UTF-8 character set. And in the end, it was reset back to default. In order to run the Python file on the console, first copy the absolute path to the file location from here. Then open your command prompt. I will use the Anaconda prompt because I have Python installed in the Anaconda environment. Change your directory to the copied path location. Just remove the file name. Then type Python space your Python file name and press enter. Your Python file will execute. Thus, we have created a Python file of our program. Now we can run it on our console. If you don't have Python installed, then install it first from the internet, or install Anaconda and then go ahead with the coding. Otherwise, nothing will work. I also suggest seeing my previous video where I explained the code in very detail using Jupyter Notebook. The link is in the description. If you liked the information, then please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your time and patience. Have a nice day.